G'day, it's Cam here, your resident incident whisperer from SafetyWise, and welcome back to Cam's Corner. Alright, let me paint you a picture. Lights down in the boardroom, projector humming. Someone fires up the deck, and there it is. A gorgeous ICAM chart. Color-coded boxes, fat arrows, maybe a couple of circles for contributing factors. It's basically incident investigation cosplay. And everyone nods like, yep, that's quality. The chart looks tidy, so we quietly assume the thinking behind it was tidy too. Here's the problem. A lot of ICAMs have turned into very expensive sorting games. Chuck that in human factors. That one's procedures. Let's call that supervision and go to lunch. We're not investigating anymore, we're filing. As soon as it becomes a categorization exercise, curiosity dies. We stop asking what was actually going on out there and start playing drop-down menu bingo. And then the recommendations come out of the vending machine. You know the set. Conduct refresher training. Rebrief workers on procedure. Update risk assessment. I'm pretty sure some of these live in a Word template from about 1996. It's like saying, we don't really understand what happened, so training? It feels like action, but nothing underneath actually shifts. 12 months later, same problem. New date in the header. My personal favorite curiosity killer is human error. Someone didn't follow the procedure. Someone lost situational awareness. Someone failed to verify. Full stop. End of story. But that's not a finding. That's a confession. We ran out of curiosity at this point. The real question is, why did that move make sense to them at the time? What did they see, hear, believe? What had the system basically taught them was normal and acceptable? Because once you poke that, you start to see the system interactions. The control screen that drags your eye to the wrong field. The production target that quietly says, look, just get it done. The resourcing model that means there is never, ever enough time to do the job the slow, official way. None of that shows up if you just write operator error and move on. Another blind spot? We love straight lines more than messy reality. Those ICAM charts make it look like incidents are a neat little domino trail. Cause, boom. In the field, it's loops and collisions. Two jobs scheduled on top of each other. Contractor handover done in the ute on the way out the gate. Alarms ignored because they've cried wolf for 3 years. All that rich, grubby interaction gets flattened into one tiny box labeled something like planning issue. And here's the danger. Leaders look at that nice, linear picture and feel comforted. We've mapped the chain. We've got 3 actions, job done. It's a false sense of control. If your ICAM looks beautiful in PowerPoint, but it hasn't made anyone even slightly uncomfortable, it's probably not going to move the safety needle. That's like polishing your helmet while the brakes on the bike are still shot. Looks shiny, still dodgy. So let's crank it up a notch and talk about the stuff we walk straight past. One of my favorite punching bags is success bias. This idea that because things usually go fine, the system must be fine. We did 10,000 jobs safely. This one incident is a weird outlier, probably someone stuffing up. Meanwhile, the system's been whispering, "Oi, I'm fragile," for years, and we've just ignored it. You see it in the gap between work as imagined and work as done. On paper, in the glossy procedure, the job is smooth as butter. In reality, nah. You've got the special ladder that technically doesn't exist. The unofficial isolation shortcut. We just cracked that valve, it's fine. The real handover that happens by text message, not in the form everyone signs. I totally have not seen any of that on site. Yeah, I absolutely have. When we investigate, we often ignore those weak signals and the slow drift into failure. Little things. People skipping a step, just this once. Gear left in a dodgy state because we'll fix it properly next shutdown. Minor alarms reset with 0 follow-up. Each one is tiny on its own, but together they bend the system closer and closer to the edge. Then something small tips it over, and we pin it all on the last person who touched it. And don't get me started on procedures that look brilliant in SharePoint and are totally useless in a muddy trench at 2 a.m. 47 steps, 3 flowcharts, decision trees that look like they were drawn by a spider on caffeine. On paper, it's perfect. In the rain, with a broken torch and a supervisor ringing you every 10 minutes asking, "How far off are you?" People are going to adapt. Then we call it non-compliance, like they woke up that morning planning a rebellion. I get a bit sarcastic reading some ICAMs. You see a line like, "non-compliance with procedure," and you think, wow, stunning insight, Sherlock. Why was that the only way to get the job done? What did the environment, the tools, the time pressure force them into? Non-compliance isn't a root cause. It's just a label for the gap between our fantasy version of work and what it actually takes to keep the place running. Then there's the big umbrella phrase everyone loves: communication issue. 2 departments use different definitions of isolated, so one thinks it's dead and the other knows it's live. That's not communication issue. That's conflicting mental models and zero shared language. A contractor portal so clunky that nobody uploads the critical drawings. That's bad system design and perverse incentives, not "oops, we forgot to communicate." A night shift that assumes days checked the permit and days assuming night did. That's a handover with no clear owner. We soften all of that because the real causes are uncomfortable. Once you write, "Our planning system makes it impossible for frontline supervisors to see real risk," or "Our KPIs quietly reward getting it done over getting it done safely," now you're pointing at leadership choices, budget decisions, system design. That's heavier than "operator should concentrate more." So we walk past the unofficial workarounds, the drift, the clunky tools, the awkward handoffs, and in doing that, we walk past the best learning. All right, let's talk about doing ICAM like we actually mean it, not just to keep the audit gods off our backs. The trick is to stop freezing the frame on the person who stuffed up and start following what I call decision lineages upstream. Instead of asking who messed this up, ask what options did they think they had and who shaped those options months or years earlier. Say someone bypasses a control. The lazy version stops at, "They broke the rule." The real version digs in. How's the job designed? Is the safe way also the slow, clunky, impossible to do on nights way? What do the KPIs quietly reward? Getting it right or getting it done? Are there enough people, enough time, enough kit? And what messages do leaders send in practice, not on posters? Who gets praised in pre-starts? The person who took time to do it by the book or the person who smashed 3 jobs before Smoko? When you trace that line, the so-called error at the sharp end starts to look less like a random brain fade and more like a predictable outcome of the way we've built the system. It doesn't mean individuals have zero accountability, I'm not saying that. But it does mean we can stop pretending the solution is, "Try harder next time, champ." Which brings us to recommendations. Lazy ones are mirrored. You see a person problem, you throw a person fix at it. Person makes mistake, do training. Person doesn't follow process, rebrief the process. Person misses a step, add another checklist. It's basically holding a mirror up to the incident and saying, do the same thing again, but better. Sharper recommendations go after the system, so we don't need hero workers to save the day. Change the interface so the critical field is the only thing you can click on. Adjust staffing or shift patterns so fatigue isn't baked in from roster design. Simplify the procedure so the safe way is also the easy, obvious way. Tweak KPIs so people aren't quietly rewarded for cutting corners. Those are the moves that quietly remove chances to fail, instead of just yelling, "Be more careful," at humans. I've got a cheeky little checklist I use when I'm reviewing ICAMs. Rough version goes like this. 1. If you're finding stop at human error or non-compliance, ask, why did that make sense, at least 3 more times. If you're bored, good. You're finally getting past the surface. 2. Scan your actions. If more than, say, a third are do training or update procedure, You're treating symptoms, not causes. Push at least one level upstream: design, planning, resourcing, leadership behaviour. 3. Hunt for success bias. Anywhere you've written, "This has never happened before," try replacing it with, "This is the first time we noticed." Then go looking for the almost events and quiet warnings that told the same story. 4. Every time you're tempted to write communication issue, force yourself to spell out the exact failure. Which handover, which interface, which assumption, and whose job it was to close the loop. And 5. My favorite gut check. Does your ICAM make anyone with budget or decision power even slightly uncomfortable? If it doesn't, you might be polishing the narrative, not changing the system. Real learning pokes at power, priorities, and how we actually run the joint, not just how we wish we did. So that's the challenge. Use ICAM as a scaffold, not a cage. Swap blame and box ticking for genuine curiosity. Follow those decision lineages upstream, and aim your fixes where they'll actually change the game. I'll leave it there before I turn into a laminated poster myself. This is Cam's Corner. Bring your messiest, most uncomfortable incidents next time. That's usually where the good stuff's hiding.